Here we are at Tech Architecture, kicking off a new series of conversations about the design and building process. Today I'm joined by Andrew Goy from GOYCON to talk about why a strong architect-builder relationship is so critical and important when planning and delivering a high-performance home.
Thanks for having me, Francesco. I would always say to get some sort of cost assurance. Basically, if it's just a design with no thought about materiality and even site access, it's really just an idea. Bringing a builder on early in the process is going to start giving early indication of price, and that may mean then at that point, okay, well, we change something slightly. Maybe we use a different cladding, or we reduce. We take 10 square meters out of the build, for example, as opposed to an experience I've had years gone by where the design's been fully resolved and it was just never going to meet the client's budget.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to avoid is
avoid the shock.
Yeah.
And I will add in a level of trust, because I think if you engage the builder early, you get to know them, you get to understand how they work, you build a relationship, and if you enjoy that relationship, then the building process will go a lot smoother.
Yeah, and again, that comes back to communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you're communicating a year before you start the project, it's going to be much easier for that to still continue during the project. Yeah, I agree. What we've managed to do is uncover more information. So that process of design it's primarily I think for Francesco is, so how are we going to build a house that performs and is attractive, that you're proud of, and then also, so like, how do we get there? And like, I find from my experience, I've sort of come back with a bit of resistance. So, okay, well, yes, we can do that. These are the implications. It may be material that's travelling from interstate, for example. Can we compromise on that? But basically, we uncover all information before we start.
Yep.
And then when the process of building actually begins, we've got the full recipe.
Yeah.
We know what we're going to put together to deliver this home. And
then when that relationship is established and we trust each other, then on site it's a lot easier to, if a problem arises or something, it's a lot easier to resolve it together rather than getting a bit upset at each other or
that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
But I mean that moment of dread that people used to feel when the architect and the clients were coming on site, people were so stressed, and that doesn't happen anymore. In fact, yesterday we had the architect and the client out, and when the architect was there, I grabbed him. I said, right, you've got to I've got 5 questions for you. And in the past, I might have dreaded that, but now I just see it as like, it's extra help.
Yeah.
And it helps them to achieve their goal as well. So yeah, it's a smoother process.
Yeah. Probably people don't realize that we as architects want that house built as much as them.
As much as the client, yeah.
Yeah. But obviously sometimes, or often, unless there's a builder on board, or we use other tools, like we don't really know how much things cost. So having someone early on that can advise on these kind of things, it makes it a lot easier to reach that goal of making our design buildable.
A lot of expansive glass. Pick your battles is what I would say. Yes, if you've got a view, you've got to maximise it. Bigger windows means bigger spans, more complex structure, bigger engineering costs are going to expand. Where possible, I think anything up to 3.6 is always quite comfortable as a span for a window. If you want to go beyond that, we start to move to steel typically. Which becomes a bit more challenging in a high performance home. We try to avoid steel. The other thing with too much glazing is we're allowing too much heat in summer and potentially letting it escape in winter. So considered glazing. Doesn't mean don't maximise the views, but just be considered, because it was really popular a long time ago to have these 4 and 5, 6 stackers. Do you remember this?
Yes.
I don't see it so much lately, like 7, 8, 10 metre openings, and they'd slide open all these doors so you could drive a car in. And then all the bugs came in. I'll quickly close it all up again. So beyond that initial housewarming party where you're going to show everyone your big door, Is it really necessary? I'd say probably not. Or is the compromise potentially just put a post in somewhere, halve that span, and you really haven't compromised on the view?
Yep.
That's my take on it sometimes.
Yeah, but also I find sometimes there's a bit of a, call it like obsession about like natural light. Like you hear people saying, we want like a lot of natural light, natural light, which is good, absolutely, but that doesn't mean that you have to put like massive windows everywhere. You can achieve it like with the right orientation. You can achieve it by placing the windows in the right spot, and that way you don't compromise the energy efficiency. You might save some money as well, because maybe smaller window means that you can probably achieve the same performance like in a passive house project or a high performance project. Like you might achieve the same performance with double glazing rather than triple glazing, which will save you money. So there's a lot of implications and all these kind of like choices. Invisible, it's probably, it's visible, but it's also, you can't really touch it. It's when it's at the start of the process. It's when you choose your site, and then when you sort of start designing the house and work out the orientation. Makes obviously a massive difference in the way you feel the house, the way the house will perform. It's not necessarily something that you see apart from like, the house moving around the block a bit. But definitely, like you get better natural light, you get more passive solar gains. That way the house will feel nice and warm in winter. And that makes a big difference when, especially when planning a high performance home, because that means that you can probably don't have to increase the amount of insulation. You don't have to increase the type of like glazing, windows, and it's all balanced. And then obviously it's reflected on cost as well.
And so orientation is one of those sort of abstract concepts as well, because when you first look at it on paper, even if you go out on site, if you imagine, okay, I'm facing north, but I'm going to tilt that way slightly or that way slightly, it seems to mean nothing.
Yeah.
But what people say after they've lived in their home for a year is, I get it now.
Yeah.
Now that I've lived here for a year, I've done a full winter, I've done a full summer. It's pleasant, it's comfortable, it's very natural and comfortable to be in.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one to convey to people.
Yeah.
And I think for some people those things are, I guess because they're intangible, you can't put it in a brochure, you can't experience it, you just have to live it. Passive house is very much like that. People can't understand it until they've experienced it.
Yeah.
And not just even for a couple of nights, ideally a full year. So. But people do say that after they've been in the house for a year, the feedback is often, I get it, I can see where the time and the effort is paying off now.
Yep.
I think one fair comment is people think at the end, we'll chuck on a water tank and some solar panels and tick, 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 give me 7 stars. Those are good things, but they're not permanent. The solar panels will wear out. Even the water tank to an extent is problematic because it requires a lot of water to build a water tank.
Yes.
And then you've got to run an electric pump, so there's energy there. So those sort of add-ons later on are good, but I don't think meaningful long term. I think what's really going to make a difference long term, and I always harp on about this, windows and walls. It's pretty boring. Get a decent wall build up with lots of insulation, buy good windows. That's permanent. Yeah,
you hear so often like people saying, I don't care about like my home like being leaky or not performing as well. I just put in like hydronic heating or all the aircon unit and then slap as many panels as possible on the roof, and you solve the problem. That's not how it works.
It's a good consumer mindset. Anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. People understand the importance of energy efficiency, of adding insulation, have good quality windows in their houses, but they still don't really understand the importance of having healthy homes. Sometimes like an energy efficient home, it's not a healthy home. When I mean a healthy home, I mean a home where you can manage the indoor air quality. And which is not just about the humidity, it's also about the level of CO2 that's keeping the pollutants out of the house. And also managing the temperature.
Stability.
Yeah, stability of temperature, like between, we know the passive house is between 20 and 25 degrees, but as, keeping it as stable as possible.
Yeah, I think the big link is probably the concept of airtightness, because it's not common on most homes, probably none of the homes you'd see around Melbourne today. The factor of having airtightness means we do need to ventilate now, and we're ventilating in a controlled way. I think this is the indoor air quality mechanism that's built into Passive House. That's a very new concept for people. This is going to deliver, it does deliver, the highest indoor air quality. So while we're saying, yes, we're going to make it airtight like a fridge, we're only going to allow air in how we see fit, which is through this intelligent HRV unit. So that's going to be filtering our air, balancing it out, dehumidifying it, monitoring it constantly. And what's more, just for a trickle of energy as well, a very efficient unit. So that's the bonus with Passive House, I reckon. It's hard to sell, it's probably spoken about less. We always talk about energy efficiency, which is the starting point. We should be talking about that. But this is a bonus. Yeah,
and you keep the pollutants out of the house, especially during bushfire season. We've seen a lot of bushfires happening. You can keep that PM 2.5 outside the house. You can control the level of CO2 inside the house, so you always like within that ideal range. You can control the level of humidity, so you sort of like drop the possibility of having like mold issues inside. There are a lot of benefits in doing that.
It's taking a little while for this to be regulated. It's going to happen. There's a lot of studies, that have been conducted now to suggest that indoor air quality in Australia has really been overlooked. There just haven't been enough, interest in the topic at all. And I think it'll be a point in time in the next 5-10 years where indoor ventilation, like intelligent ventilation like HRV, will become mandatory in every home. And it makes sense. A lot of people describe the HRV unit as the lungs of the home. And if you look at them, you change the filters out every year, you can look in these filters and go, well, that's what I wasn't breathing for the last 12 months. Tap it out or change the filter and away you go again. So, and that's going to have long-term positive health impacts.
We're spending a lot more time indoors. It's like 90% of the time, something like that. It's just like crazy, and you want to make sure you're living in a healthy environment.
I mean, if you think about homes in the 50s, 60s and 70s, they were terribly leaky, but they were so leaky that you were getting fresh air all the time. And people probably
accidental fresh air,
accidental fresh air. But also, I mean, there was less industry, less traffic, so the air was probably slightly better quality back then as well. Unless you lived in, Tullamarine or something amongst the factories. But they were almost intentionally leaky, so you were getting fresh air constantly. But we gradually, with the building standards, wrapping buildings up to become more and more airtight. It's happening slowly. And it needs to be matched with this ventilation system. So, I think a healthy home sort of goes two ways. One that, I think both of them are new concepts for people, but resale value. A certified passive house is almost guaranteed to, at a minimum, gain more interest if you do have to put the property on the market, because it's got that track record, independently verified, and it's chances are it's going to come with some data about how much energy the home's been using, since it was built. That's going to impact sale price. I'm absolutely certain of that. I think it's going to be favourable for insurance and finance for a home. I think people are going to look on that favourably. But then the health benefits, you'll live longer. Who wouldn't want that? To live longer with a lot less chance of illness. Who wouldn't want that?
I think, and also there are some tangible benefits, like for people, especially people that suffer from asthma or respiratory issues. or minimizing the risk of these issues to happen. We know we've heard so many stories of people living in moldy houses and developing all sorts of problems, and this is sort of a guarantee that you're not going to have to deal with this type of problems in your life if you live in a healthy home.
The other bit of feedback I had from two people was there was one case of a lady who has a lot of musical instruments, pianos, violins, a lot of timber musical instruments.
Yeah.
And from her perspective, to have that consistent humidity and temperature is ideal. And likewise, another fellow I know who has a recording studio, and for him to have zero dust is perfect.
Yeah.
So obviously temperature is a bonus for him, but he can control but eliminate the dust in his studio. So again, it's one of those little hidden benefits of an airtight home or a passive house that you can't put on paper to someone.
And then obviously it's reflected to your lifestyle, if you're generally healthier and happier, because that's what eventually will feel like. It's you have more time for yourself, you have more time, you have probably less sick days at work, you can increase your productivity, there's all those sorts of side benefits that people probably forget about.
I feel like the people think the enemy is the indoor air temperature or the humidity inside the home. But it's really about that surface temperature, isn't it? So if we're not insulating walls properly, installing windows or installing cheap windows, we're allowing that surface temperature to cool down so much that's when we do start to get the condensation form, and that's the beginning of
it's like that.
Of mold.
Even if you're at 20 degrees inside your home, but if that surface temperature is around the 12, 13 degrees, that's where condensation starts to form, and if condensation is there for a while, that's when mold starts to grow. And I think, and then we can circle back to when we were saying we were talking about cost control as well. Sometimes you need, if you want a bigger window, you need to put a steel beam. But obviously, if you have steel, which is it's a big conductor, means that you need to insulate it really well. Otherwise, that will become a thermal breach, and that's an area where condensation can form, and then mold can grow.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance to look at a home at night with a thermal imaging camera, you can literally scan through the building and see where the steel beams are. Likewise in summer, if you scan over the walls with the thermal camera, you can see timber, and then glowing red will be this steel beam.
Yeah.
Try to avoid that as much as we can, but sometimes it's a necessary evil, isn't it? Yeah.
We are at the sort of the bottom of the range of climate zones. It means that we are in sort of the coldest areas of Australia. If you look at the way you use your house, it means that you use the heating a lot more than you use cooling. So it means that when we design a house, we stress a bit more about make sure that it's warm in winter, and probably a bit less about the cooling in summer. But it's still part of the equation, but it's a lot more important to have the right amount of insulation, the right type of windows for a climate zone that's sitting between the mild to the cool sort of areas.
Yeah, we want to be able to say with a minimum energy input that the building's not going to drop below 20 degrees, 19 degrees. Yep. Obviously it's not always going to be the case, because you do have to open doors and windows to get into the house, but ideally in these climate zones we can use that as a guide to say, okay, well, if we use this much insulation, the whole building assembly is designed thoughtfully, we can maintain a comfortable temperature with a minimal input of energy.
Yeah, and that's I guess probably what's important to know is that the type of design changes depending on the type of climate zone that you are. So it's not that everything works for everywhere. Like you always have to sort of adapt your choices and your type of design depending on
Yeah,
where
in the
your project
alpine
is.
areas,
Yeah.
it's sort of, I think climate zone, I think they're 5.
No, it goes to 8, so it's like the
Okay.
bottom one. I mean, air tightness is a constant for sort of like all homes, like regardless of the climate zone, as well as like thermal bridge free design. I guess what changes probably will make a change between building outside the city and inside the city is to sort of like the heat island effect. So obviously you get a lot more like temperature swing outside the city than inside the city, and that's probably where maybe the color and the finish of your home will make a difference. Like we know that darker colors like black, dark gray and stuff absorb more heat, which might be a little bit more suitable for a house that's in the hills or even better in the alpine region. While
Hundreds of those bunched up in a suburb,
Yeah.
not so good.
yeah, you probably there's a lot of, especially in summer, obviously there's a lot of like heat like coming and being bounced off from the street, from other buildings and stuff. So you don't want to absorb that extra heat. So it's probably a balance there where like maybe like a lighter grays or whites are probably a little bit more suitable.
So Francesco, what should people do if they're thinking about embarking on this journey?
So if they want a beautiful home that it's healthy to live in,
And what's more durable, the kind of home you can expect to pass on to the next generation,
yeah, and if you want to enjoy the process, you don't want to feel like it's daunting or overwhelming.
and also delivered on time and on budget, then get in touch with us the usual way.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Francesco. It's been great.